Welcome to Queers Quills, the official podcast. I'm audiobook narrator Kirt Graves. Every episode, I invite an attending author or narrator to join me for a one-on-one conversation about their lives and their art, so attendees and readers from across the world can get to know them not only as professionals, but as people. We've had a lot of great interviews over these last 45 episodes, and I want to thank every guest and listener who joined me. Joining me today for our final episode is narrator Carrie Coello. Carrie appeared in her first play at the age of 7, portraying a cranky, middle-aged fortune teller. From that moment on, she was drawn to characters that enlighten, entertain, and reflect the human condition. Trained by top narrators in the industry, Carrie has recorded over 100 titles available on Audible. She works closely with authors and publishers to bring words on the page vividly to life, blending humor with a deep understanding of human nature. Carrie has a special affinity for amateur sleuths, small-town heroes who rise by their own grit, and teenagers navigating the complexities of identity and the world around them. She is passionate about telling their stories. Welcome to the podcast, Carrie.
Thank you so much, Kirt.
It is a pleasure to have you here. So let's start at the very beginning. What is your narrator origin story?
All right, my narrator origin story. It was 2019, and our family was going through some economic uncertainty. My husband was laid off, and I had been teaching preschool and raising our children, and he was like, "What could you do?" And I was like, "What could I do? What do I want to do if I'm ready to reinvent myself yet again?" And I've always loved listening to audiobooks, going back to when I was 4 or 5 and had children's stories on vinyl. My dad had a collection of Let's Pretend stories from the 1950s.
Oh, cool.
And And I listened to audiobooks all the way through high school, college, and adulthood. But I believed you had to live in New York or LA to be an audiobook narrator. So I was thrilled to discover that that is no longer the case. And I realized at that time that I had been involved in a lot of theater and community theater as a child and teenager. And then I had transitioned into film production, and I worked for a decade in independent film. And I ended up specializing in being a script supervisor on set and an editor. And that gave me the technical ability to feel confident editing audio, although I'm not an engineer, but just the mechanics of editing audio and being able to listen for performance. And then I had transitioned into education, and I had taught middle school language arts and Shakespeare for years, doing literature analysis. And I'd been teaching preschool and reading to kids. So I was like, I actually have all of the different audiobook narrator skills from my different previous careers. I just need to put them together and build like a blanket fort. So I converted the closet under the stairs was my first booth for several years. And I just hit up ACX, did a whole lot of royalty share and kind of learned on the job through trial and error, and slowly worked my way to where I am now, which is I feel like I'm like a journeyman working narrator.
Yeah. I was about to ask, how quickly did your family learn that when your husband said, "What could you do?" he meant something that makes money? Because it can take a while.
Having, Kirt.
Right. It can take a while to make money doing this.
Absolutely. But he's an artist. We've always been artists. So being working artists and being able to feed our kids without living in luxury is a privilege.
Yeah. I'm really curious about your experience, because you said you started around 2019, and there was a big narrator boom that happened during the pandemic because there were suddenly lots of actors working from home.
Absolutely.
What was your experience entering the space, seeing what ACX was like, living in that world for a little bit, And then all of a sudden, probably before you felt like you really got your feet on the ground, there's
Oh, definitely.
tons more people.
So I saw it and I noticed it, but like you say, it didn't necessarily affect me because I didn't feel like I was in direct competition with experienced actors with representation entering the field, if that makes sense. This was before I joined SAG-AFTRA, before I was really working with major publishers. So the level that I was working at, uh, while I noticed more people coming in, I didn't feel threatened by it. Um, One thing that happened for me personally at the moment of the pandemic, I mentioned several times that I was teaching preschool, is that my preschool shut down. And so I started a podcast, a storytelling podcast for little kids. And that gave me a sense of purpose that I had to be in front of the mic every single week, whether I was booking audiobooks or not.
Yeah.
So that was a great way of overcoming any anxiety. Uh, and it was it was like a lower stakes way to play with voices, with accents that weren't quite ready for the big time, and just get really comfortable. So
I
I did about 100
love that.
episodes of that podcast. It's still out there, but I haven't produced an episode in over a
Mhm.
year.
You know, there are so many ways that we can teach ourselves and give ourselves experience. And I just think that's such a brilliant way to make your own work,
Yeah, well, I'm
which is
definitely
often
a
what we
learning
have to
by
do.
doing person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that. And it takes a certain amount of courage too to be like, I'm putting this out there while I'm still learning, which is the hurdle that I think we all go through in the
but
early
as I
days.
was doing it, it was a gift for my students, right? It was a
Yeah.
way to keep connecting with these kids that I had already been in relationship with, and I could picture them, and I'm like, I'm telling this story to this little guy who I know.
It
So,
definitely, and don't you find it helps to have a specific audience in mind
yeah,
when you're storytelling? Yeah.
yeah. I don't always, but sometimes for a particular conversation or a scene that I'm struggling with, it really is helpful to picture exactly who this is for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you started on ACX. Do you remember what your first book was?
Sure. It's a
Is it something
Canadian.
you don't have to talk about it if you don't want
No, no, it's fine. It's not
to?
embarrassing at all. I think it's a great little book, actually. It's a
Great.
Canadian sci-fi dystopian book called Playing in the Rain of a girl who wakes up with amnesia in an institution, doesn't know who she is, how she got there, or who exactly is experimenting on her.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Nice.
It's a trilogy, but
Awesome.
that's the first book.
Yeah.
So I would say on the one hand, listen to it because it's a great story. And on the other hand, did I have a lot to learn? You know, listening to it now, there's a lot of things I would improve about my performance, but it's still a good book.
Can relate.
Yep, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. What are the books or media that really influences you now? What do you love? What inspires you?
Well, I really love speculative fiction and magical realism and books that really push the envelope of the form, I would say, is what I'm drawn to as a reader. But I feel like as a narrator, I probably have the most fun with mysteries. There's something, before this episode began, you and I were talking about how sometimes limits around creativity, like the limits of structure, can
Uh,
actually encourage creativity in certain ways. And I love how mysteries have a format to them. There's an inciting incident. There are a number of things that happen along the way. There are clues that are dropped. There are red herrings. There are characters. Was this the person, the killer, or is it the other one? And being able to craft that as an actor so that the answer to the mystery is both revelatory and yet inevitable
Yeah.
is just a really fun acting challenge that I relish.
That's really cool. Something you just said just struck me, and so I'm curious what your thoughts are. I really struggled for a long time because I didn't come from a formal acting background like you. I had like these hodgepodge of jobs and experiences that really gave me all the tools that turned
Yeah,
out to be great for narration.
yeah.
Um, have you ever struggled to like identify as an actor?
I think when I first started narration, yes, it probably took me a year or two to really settle into owning that identity.
Yeah.
Um, I think it was formal coaching, which I was about 2 years into my narration journey before I pursued some formal business coaching and performance coaching.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's when I really settled into the fact that I'm an actor again and that I deserve that title. That's what this is.
Yeah. Yeah. I again can relate. It took a while for me to get
Yeah.
comfortable embracing that. Um, and I don't know, I don't remember what flipped the switch or if it was a flip or if it's something that happened gradually over time. Um, but I really struggled to say like I'm a voice actor or I'm an actor. I would be like I narrate audiobooks. I wouldn't even identify as a narrator because I was like that's
Yeah.
not who I am. It's just what I'm doing. And
Well,
like
and you see sometimes the job title being given as reader.
yes.
And it's true, we're reading it,
Sure.
but I prefer narrated by, performed by, because I think it gets at the essence of the craft.
Yeah. Yeah. Um are there any other projects that you've done that stick out as we're talking about like your work, things that you're particularly proud of?
Are you going to ask me why queer stories? Is that still coming
Yeah.
up?
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, do it.
I think that's
I
the other.
will. In fact,
Okay,
let's say
good.
I just did. Do go
Good.
for it.
So I knew you were going to ask this question about why queer stories. And it made me think about what it felt like to be a teenager and just figuring out how to be a baby dyke and not having a lot of role models and seeking out as many books as I could find about what it meant to be a queer person in the world. And I came across Alison Bechdel's work, Dykes to Watch Out For, pretty early on and read those religiously. I own every one and they're well thumbed through. And I was living in a suburb of Portland, Oregon at the time, and there was a little bookstore, a little queer bookstore in North Portland, that I would go to. And it was like, oh, how many books can I afford? Or Powell's, like, how many books can I take home? And just soak up as much as I possibly could. And I remember being drawn also at the time to a lot of gay male literature because anything about the queer experience in the world felt instructive.
Yeah.
And just a lot of them are really good books. Um, so I think about those young people and older people who may be exploring a new side of themselves when I'm narrating, that this fiction is often for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Have
And just to
you
see reflections of ourselves as mature people as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that for me has almost been the greater gift. As much as I love YA and I love to do YA, and I'm so
Mhm.
happy that those books exist, and of course my inner child adores them. The joy that I've been finding more of recently is seeing writers who are writing about middle-aged queer people
Yeah.
going about their lives and
Well,
being
my goodness.
desired and being important and special and getting books written about them. I'm like, thank you.
Have you seen my flag? Our Flag Means Death?
I watched the first season.
Oh, my friend. you must watch the second season
Okay.
as well.
It gets gayer,
Um,
I've heard.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Uh, but that's one of my, I know it's not a book, but it's one of my favorite pieces of media recently for seeing middle-aged people uh, finding desire, finding friendship, finding found family themselves.
Yeah.
I just think it's beautiful. I can't say enough good things. And
Yeah.
hilarious.
Do you like to
But
laugh
yeah,
while you're are you a humorous fan?
yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, so, and I think so far when you've asked me about books, I've talked about speculative fiction, I've talked about mystery. I haven't talked so much about romance. And I do like narrating romance, but I don't necessarily love the angst. Um,
Uh,
does she love me? Does she love me not? That I usually want there to be more than that. And I think as a reader and narrator, my favorite romances are the rom-coms because I do love the humor.
yeah. I have said the same thing many times. People are probably sick of me talking about it, but yeah, I need some sort of external obstacle. If the only obstacle keeping two people apart is what's going on inside their head, I get a little bored. And I
Well,
love that there are people in the world who want that, and they don't want the characters to be put in any sort of situation where they are being impeded by something else. And so
yeah,
there is a safety in that, and there is a comfort in that, and they love those stories. And I do a lot of those stories, and I come to love those characters as much as I love the rest of them that I do. But as a consumer, if I'm shelling out nickels and dimes for an audiobook or an ebook, I want I want there to be something else going on. Give
and
me a
I think
plot.
it
I
circles
like
back to
romance plus
something.
plot.
Yeah, me too. I think it circles back to something else that you just said as well, that, talking about the finding so much beauty in more mature love stories. If a couple's problems can be solved by one open, honest conversation, then I'm not sure that that's enough of a problem for me to really care about. I think the story is more interesting to me. Like you say, when there's some sort of external
Uh-huh.
obstacle or when it's something more than just one mature conversation can
Right.
fix.
And to yes and that, there's also, I think, a lot to chew on as an actor when the external obstacle is still something that's just going on inside the character, whether it's some sort of past trauma or a
Yeah.
previous relationship that is stopping them from seeing what's in front of them or stopping them from acting because of fear. Like, those are still, to me, things that are interesting because it's something that has to happen outside of just the one mature adult conversation. Because
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
conversation cannot fix trauma, uh, or like the scars of a previous relationship, and sometimes that is the obstacle. And it's like, great, I'm there for that too. But yeah, too often it's just one good conversation, and this book would be 12 pages long.
Yep.
I've been
And
in
there's a
love with
place
my
for
best
that.
friend for years, and tonight I'm gonna tell him.
It's finally time.
Right?
Um, but uh, but yeah, and as an actor, there's just more to do.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Although, and again, I'm like reversing myself here. I like sometimes it really is for me just about the characters. And like, because a really, plot driven story, if the characters aren't fully fleshed out, is equally boring to me. If I don't care about the people in the situation, I'm not digging into that in the same way I would another book where they've written beautiful characters who are also going through it.
Well, and that's the thing is, we can talk about what we usually like or what we don't like or this genre or that trope, but it comes back to the author and what they're doing with it, how well they're handling it, their language, their sensitivity that could really elevate a book, even if it doesn't, fit the format that we're describing.
Yeah. Speaking of books that we love to do, if somebody was coming to your work for the first time,
Mhm.
Is there a project or two or an author that you've worked with that you're like, go to this project. This is a really good representation of who I am and what I can do.
I do want to give a shout out to JJ Arias and Guava Flavored Lies. That book
Nice.
is incredible. I really liked narrating that book.
One of my
It's
favorite titles.
yes, it's set with rival Cuban bakery owners, really heiresses, in Miami, and their family's generations long feud. And there's so much humor, so much
Mm.
culture, so many guava pasteles. It's so good.
Love that. Love that.
So I really loved uh, narrating that project. And
Awesome.
that's got those rom-com elements and the external obstacles and the, you know, thoroughly fleshed out characters that we're talking about.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Carrie, I've also invited you here to play a game. Are you ready for that?
Oh, yes.
Right. So the rules of our game are simple. I have a deck of cards, and on each card is a question. So the questions aim to learn more about you personally. Some are biographical, some are hypothetical, some are just plain silly. But I will not be picking which questions you will answer. Fate is going to do that for us. So I will deal 3 cards every round. You choose one, and whatever card you pick, you're agreeing to answer. But you have a couple of outs. So if a question comes along that you don't want to answer, you have 2 opportunities to switch things up. You can turn the tables on me one time, forcing me to answer the question, or you can also discard the personal question in favor of answering a more bookish question from the white deck. But then you're only dealt 1 card and you have to answer it. Ready?
I accept the challenge.
Here we go. All right. Card 1, card 2, or card 3. What's the worst job you've ever had?
Okay. So when I was in college, I decided I wanted to do a semester abroad. And I picked Liverpool, England, because I thought I spoke the language. Once I heard the Liverpudlian accent, I realized how terribly wrong I was. So I spent 4 months in Liverpool, and my passport was stamped not eligible for employment. But I did not have enough money to cover rent and food. I had to find some kind of work. And so I tried to talk to some of the other non-EU students who were there and to figure out what they were doing. And I ended up getting a job where I would show up at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon at this Japanese restaurant, and they would load rice and ingredients and workers into a van, and they would drive us out to a sandwich factory on the outskirts of town where we would work in a refrigerated room with no breaks until we had turned all of those ingredients into rolls of sushi that we would run through the slicing machine and package into little boxes to be sold in a grocery store the next morning.
Wow.
So illegal work, rolling sushi in a sandwich factory is up there with probably the most unique um, and difficult job I've had, from the context of the fact that my fingers would get so swollen and sore from being so cold.
Yeah.
But the good thing was
Wow.
that they didn't want to put the end pieces, the ugly end pieces, in their pretty little boxes. So I could just eat them,
Nice.
and I saved a lot of groceries.
That is good. I did not see that one coming. Well done. That was a
And then
great
one of my coworkers told me how to fake a temporary national insurance number, and I got a job bartending at a nightclub, and that was way better.
Nice. 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 I almost don't want to go on. That's such a good answer to the first question. But here we go. We'll see what fate deals you after this. All right.
Okay,
Card 1, card 2, or card 3.
two's been working for me so far.
All right. Describe your sense of humor in 1 word.
I want to say eclectic, although that kind of feels like a cop out.
But is it true?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, things are funny when they surprise you, I think.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so it can't be anything typical.
Yeah.
It has
Yeah.
to be the
Great point.
unusual, the
Great
specific,
point.
The bizarre.
Mm-hmm. That I co-sign that. That is
Thank you.
when I am well, first of all, I try not to try to be funny. I try to just execute funny. But when I'm putting when I on the occasions when I'm recording a book and I've started the sentence and I realize halfway through there's another way I could go, I try to make the surprising choice. And when I'm directing a show and working with actors, that's what I like. I'm like, go do that scene again. Surprise me with some new choices. I don't want to see what you're doing coming. So,
Yeah.
I
Because if people can anticipate the way the next beat is going to play out, it's usually boring.
which is why a lot of actors fail at being funny, even in very funny shows, because they know the punchline is coming and they're letting the audience know it's coming. Like, I'm about to say something funny. Are you ready for this? It's like, no, now it's not funny.
That's, I think, the essence of being in the moment is you have to find your unique path to that punchline every single time, even if it's the, 50th show of the run. You have to get from point A to point B mentally in a fresh way.
Right. We talk about that as narrators a lot, that our job is to be spontaneous or to fake it very well.
Yes.
We won't get into do you prep or do you not prep, but like the people, the folks who are
you have to read every word on the page.
Right.
But what they mean when you say them.
Yeah.
That has to be fresh.
Yeah. Yeah. And so even if you've read it before, you have to be able to be like, that's the acting part. Making it sound like it's the first time you've read it. That's the part we call acting. So, All right, card 1, card 2, or card 3?
I can't leave 2 now.
Okay, all right. If you could send a message to the entire world, what would you say in 30 seconds?
It's hard not to get political. The project, okay, so the project that I just recorded was a lesbian medical romance by Emily Hayes for the Forest Vale Hospital series. But the project that I did right before that is this haunting dystopian climate change novel that's like our near future. And it's all based around this fictional mental illness that comes from separation with nature. And I don't think I'm ever going to forget that I read that. So if I have one message for the world right now, it's that you depend on nature and nature depends on you. So get out there, get out in it, and then make some good choices.
Yeah. I like that. Put it on a t-shirt, please.
Okay.
All right. All right. I think we have time for a couple more rounds. So card 1, card 2, or card 3?
2.
Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
Actually.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of them.
Yeah. If you think of any others, you can sprinkle them in.
I will try.
All right. I need to ask, but card 1, card 2, or card 3?
3.
Oh. All right.
I was trying to do something surprising.
Really throwing me off. What characteristic are you most known for? And let's say in your personal life, not as a public-facing narrator.
Overthinking and overanalyzing would maybe be the negative way to put it. But having a well-reasoned and thoughtful response is the positive spin. Okay.
I was going to say, a queer person who overthinks things.
Surely not.
Groundbreaking.
It's never happened.
It's florals for spring. I know. Jeez. But I like the positive spin. That's good. All right.
I like it about myself. I wouldn't change.
Yeah. All right. Last one. Card 1, card 2, or card 3? All right.
My old friend.
Have you ever licked a battery? I think like most of the narrators have gotten that question. It's very strange.
Who hasn't licked a battery? I came across this thing recently that I think is absolutely true. And it's look around you. You can imagine what every single thing would feel like against your tongue, right? Like this tablecloth and that flower petal and this banana peel and this mechanical pencil. all of that is the hard work that you did when you were 1, 2, 3 years old paying off,
Yeah.
right? We have this like
Yeah.
built-in texture library that we created through oral exploration.
A very good point.
See,
Also an excellent band name.
overthinking, overanalyzing.
Yeah. Well, Carrie, this has been a delight. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I really appreciate it.
It's great to talk to you, Kirt.
And
I'm
thank
honored
you.
to be your last guest.
Yes, you're the final guest on Queers and Quills,
Got
the
in
official
under the
podcast.
wire.
Here we go. Yeah, and thank you, listeners, for joining us for Queers and Quills. I have had a blast getting to know so many of the attending authors and narrators and hearing from attendees. We are part of the best community of readers to ever exist. I will not be accepting rebuttals. And I cannot wait to spend time with all of you in person. So, if you're already signed up to attend Queers and Quills, make sure to say hello to me and to Carrie at the Oregon Convention Center in just a few days. And if you're not, follow Queers and Quills on Instagram so you can see all the fun we're having this year and get updates about ticket availability in the future. Until next time, I'm Kirt Graves, and I hope you're having a very gay day. Queers and Quills, the official podcast, is produced and hosted by Kirt Graves, in coordination with Mahogany Mail and Marley Valentine. All copyrighted material is shared with permission. Music and sound effects are licensed through Storyblocks Audio. All opinions shared are those of the individuals and do not reflect the positions or policies of any company or organization with which they happen to be associated.